love. We've talked about it all year, and it is such a wonderful word. It brings up so many great thoughts, many thoughts that we have worked through over this year, and they are all wonderful and they are all true. God, look at me and listen, God loves us. Our Father loves us. Our Heavenly Father loves us. But I have a question for us tonight that will lead into this new series. What is the greatest desire that a father has for his children? Think of that question. What is the greatest desire a father has for his children? Is it for them to have an easy, cozy, comfortable life with no problems and no trials and no difficulties or hardships? Or is it something more than that? Does God, our Father, want something more than just us having a comfortable, cozy life? Now, to begin answering that question, I immediately thought about our Redeeming Love series over Romans 8. You remember this? We talked about Romans 8. And in Romans 8, verse 29, we see that a child of God's final destiny will give us an indication to this answer. And here's what Paul writes in Romans 8. For those that God the Father foreknew, he predestined to be conformed into the image of his Son, that's Jesus, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those he predestined, he called, and those he called, he justified, and those he justified, he glorified. So if I look at those verses, and I say, what is the ultimate final destination or the ultimate final goal that God the Father has for his children? Well, it is to look like Jesus, to be conformed into the image of Jesus, and one day have a glorified body like Jesus. So the goal is, God the Father's goal for us is to look like Jesus. The heart of the Father is for his children to be conformed to his Son. The Apostle John, who we spent time at youth camp with, in his third letter, he writes these words, 3 John 1:4, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in truth. So I think the goal, the ultimate delight of God the Father for us, the ultimate goal, the ultimate joy, the thing that God wants the most for us is to walk in truth, and in walking in that truth, look more and more like Jesus as we grow. Ultimately, being glorified like him. Listen to this quote by C.S. Lewis. In God, there is no hunger that needs to be filled. How many of you were in David's class at youth camp? Talked about need loves, right? And he talked about give loves. There is no hunger that needs to be filled in God. He has no need loves. Only pleasantness that desires to give. He's got give loves, not need loves. The God who needs nothing loves into existence holy creatures, H-W-H-O-L-L-Y, holy creatures, in order that he may love them and perfect them. So, what is God's ultimate goal for his children? To love them in such a way that they're perfected to look like Jesus. Everybody got that? Everybody on board? Everybody understand that? God the Father's ultimate goal for you is to love you in such a way that he perfects you and that you look like Jesus. Okay? I'm a dad. I myself think about what I want for my kids. What are the greatest desires that I have for my kids? Is it for their life to be easy? Is it for their life to be comfortable? No. It's that my kids would grow in maturity. That my son would grow to be a mature, godly man. That my girls grow to be mature, godly women. That's what I want. And here's what I know. I know that in order for them to grow into maturity, they're going to have to go through hardships and difficulties and tough times. And as a father, if I love them, I cannot try to make it to where they never go through that. Because I know they're not going to grow. And God does the same thing. God knows the only way to perfect my children is for them to go through it. For them to go through hard stuff and difficult stuff. It's the only way they're going to get perfected. It's the only way they're going to look like Jesus. We have to go through tough stuff in order to grow and reach maturity. So God puts us through tough obstacles and difficulties and hardships, not because he doesn't love us, but for the very opposite reason, because he does love us and he wants us to grow up. Let me say that again. Everybody listen. God puts us through hardships and difficulties and trials, not because he doesn't love us, but the very opposite. Because he does love us and he wants us to grow up. So this series is a series about that very thing. A father's love expressed in the most beneficial way for us, and it will not always be squishy, lovey, or dovey. Lovey-dovey. Won't always be squishy, lovey-dovey. Sometimes it's going to require real hardship. As I look through Hebrews 12. Well, let's just read verse 1 together. Get your Bibles out. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. We're actually going to go down through verse 17 in this series. This is going to be a 6-week series. 6 weeks. And then when we change up the format in here on Wednesday nights, we'll start something new. But I just want to read the very first verse. There's enough here to last for multiple weeks, but we're going to try to knock all this out tonight. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Everybody got it? Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. This verse, as I begin looking at this verse, thinking about this verse, 4 words came to mind from this verse, and they're actually my points tonight. So every point tonight is one word. Okay? I didn't come up with anything clever. I didn't come up with anything that rhymes or that all starts with the same letter. It's just simply 4 words. But I think if we understand these 4 words from this text, we'll understand what verse 1 is all about. All right? First word, endurance. The first word is endurance. Write it down, take notes, put it in the blank. Not only did this word jump out to me from verse 1, the more I looked at it, the more it seems to be the theme of this entire section. In fact, it may be the theme of the entire book of Hebrews. Endurance. It is a very common theme in the New Testament. You see it everywhere. I just did a quick ESV word search for the word endurance in the New Testament, and it pops up all over the place. Here's just a few. James 1:4. You have these verses in your notes right in front of you. James 1:4. Let endurance have its perfect result. Luke 21:19. By your endurance you will gain your lives. Matthew 24:13. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. 2 Corinthians 6:4. But in everything commending ourselves as servants of God in much endurance. The New Testament has endurance, 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 endurance everywhere. The Greek word endurance means to keep going, to continue even when you want to slow down or give up. Okay, now I think when we think about the word endurance in our own lives, or when we're talking about about sports, or we're talking about having to do something hard, this word is easy for us to understand because it means the same thing in Greek that it means in English. It means to keep going when things are difficult, and when you want to quit and you want to give up and you want to slow down, you don't. And we talk about people that have great endurance. That when everybody else is getting tired, they're not getting tired. I think about basketball reference. One of the things that has made Steph Curry one of the greatest basketball players of all time is that he is in unbelievable shape. And when everybody else is tired, he is still running off of 5 different screens, curling off, catching the ball, and shooting a 3 and not being tired when everybody else is tired. I'm just tired thinking about him running around. He has an endurance that when everybody else is slowing down at the end of a game, he's not. That's what this word means. It means to keep going, to continue even when you want to slow down and give up. The New Testament makes it clear for the Christian, developing endurance is essential. I went ahead and wrote this, and I'm not wrong. Without endurance, you cannot be a Christian. Without endurance, you cannot be a Christian. You are actually called to endure. And if you don't have endurance as a Christian, you're not a Christian. Because what will happen is, you may call yourselves a Christian, you may walk down an aisle one day, or you may pray a certain prayer one day, but when things get tough and you throw up your hands and quit and say, I don't want this Jesus stuff because it's too hard, you're proving that you were never saved to begin with. You were never a Christian to begin with. Christians have endurance. And if you don't have endurance, you're not a Christian. So that's the first word, endurance. And that's what he says. He says, run with endurance. Second word is the word race. Second word I want to point out is the word race. This is the analogy that the writer of Hebrews is going to use when talking about the life of faith. He says, let us run the race set before us with endurance. Life is a race, but it is not a sprint. Listen carefully. Life is a race. It is not a sprint. Now, some of us, are in our 40s. Some of us in our 70s. So 70s? Oh. You're looking great for 70, girl. Some of us are in our 40s. And I've been a Christian for a long period of time. So I've been running this race longer than some of you in here. You teenagers, some of you have not been running this race long. But I want you to know that this race is not a sprint. And sometimes what happens is people come and they get religion, they get spirituality, and they start off sprinting, and they are so pumped and so excited. But what happens is they run out of gas real quick. And they don't endure through difficult and hardship, and they're running really fast, and so they come to an obstacle, and then they say, I'm not quite sure I want to run this race anymore. This is a marathon. And you say, well, how do you know, Neil? Because the Greek word race, is where we get our word agony. Think about that. The Greek word race is where we get, it goes to Latin and then it comes to English, it's where we get our word agony. It literally means a run that is grueling, tiresome, and difficult. This is not a 100-meter sprint. The Olympics are going to start Friday, right? Actually, they're going to start Thursday, but then they got, some events start Thursday, but then they hold to do the whole thing. Supposedly, Celine Dion is going to make a comeback and sing at the opening ceremony, so record it so you can see her. Near, far away. Okay, now listen. I lost what I was saying. Okay, I got it back. Okay. This is not a 100-meter sprint. This is not ready, set, go, and then 10 seconds later, we're done. Have you ever watched those people run the marathon? It's unbelievable. And they talk about hitting the wall. where some point in the race they hit this wall where their body literally wants to shut down. And they know if they push through the wall, they'll get what's called their second wind. You've heard that before, right? Like it comes from it's a marathon term. It literally means you're running, you hit the wall, your body wants to quit, you want to be done, and if you push through it, you get your second wind, and then you can finish the race. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. You are going to hit obstacles. You're going to hit walls throughout your spiritual life of faith that you are running. There's no way around it. This is what, putting it together with this idea of endurance, it makes sense now. He says, running the race with endurance. If the word race is this grueling, difficult, hard thing, now it makes sense why he says you got to do it with endurance. This is not just an easy stroll. This is not just a quick jog. This is a difficult, long, grueling, hard, treacherous run that you're on, and you're going to hit obstacles over and over and over again, so you got to run it with endurance. This idea is used by Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 25. You got this in your notes. Look at it in your notes, these two texts. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, or a gold medal, as we would say today. But we get an imperishable wreath or crown. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and I keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. 2 Timothy 4, 7 and 8. Have nothing to do with irreverent, silly myths. Rather, train yourselves for godliness. For while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise to the present life and also for the life to come. Paul says you are going to have to train. You are going to have to endure. You are going to have to work hard in order to make it. The author of Hebrews says that this race is set before us. Look at verse 1 again. It says, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. This means we know the race. Listen to me, guys. Listen. The race of the Christian life is not difficult because we don't know what we're supposed to run. It's difficult because we do know what we're supposed to run. It's hard because we know exactly what it means. It's not an easy thing. It's a difficult thing. It's hard. It's laid out for us in Scripture what this walk or what this race looks like. Life in general is difficult. The Christian life is even harder. Do you know why life is harder as a Christian? Because now you fight sin. When you weren't a Christian, guess what? You don't fight sin. You just sin and you don't care. But all of a sudden you become a Christian and now you're at war with your flesh. You're trying to fight against sin. And it makes life even that much harder. So, first word, endurance. Second word, race. Third word, wait. Wait. The writer says, lay aside every weight. This word in Greek is anything of mass or heaviness that hinders you. Anything that hinders you from running the best you can, that is what you're supposed to lay aside. Now, if a runner has excess body weight, he's got to get rid of it. In fact, in the Greek games, the runners would run completely butt naked. You got to remember, they didn't have Under Armour. They didn't have proper running equipment like we have today. They wore robes and tunics. Well, it's going to be a little bit difficult to run a race in a robe and a tunic. So guess what they would do? They'd lay it aside and they'd run that race naked. Paul is saying, listen, there's going to be weight in your life, things in your life that you've got to lay aside in order for you to be able to run properly. Now, this word doesn't have any kind of negative connotation to it. It's just anything that would make the race more difficult. Anything that would zap your energy. Anything that would dampen your enthusiasm to the things of God. Anything that's going to slow you down in your walk with God needs to be laid aside. One way that you know you're in the race is because you notice the weight. Think about that. If you're in the race, you know you're in the race because you notice if things are weighing you down. I'm going to ask you three senior boys to come up here right here. You three senior boys come up here. Okay, we're gonna do an exercise, a illustration, come on up. Just let's put Braden and Caden over here. Hayden, you're over here. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. All right. Hayden, you are for 30 seconds. In fact, I'm going to give you my watch. Put my watch on. Put my watch on. This is going to he's having trouble putting the watch on. Here, let me put the watch on for you. Just let me put this watch on.
That's a lot of pressure.
I'm in front of an audience, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, one of the difficult things to do in life is put on a watch.
You can stop, Neil.
But that's good. You don't have to.
Just because you're in front of everyone all the time.
Hayden, you saw these guys singing?
This is
Whoa! All right, that's good.
I no
okay.
longer feel sorry.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put on a workout here.
Great.
All right, I'm gonna put on outdoor run. I'm going to put it for a time. I'm going to put it for 1 minute. You're going to run in place for 1 minute.
Yay.
Okay? Ready? Don't fling my watch across the room.
Yes, do that.
I already got a feeling this is going to happen. Okay, ready? You run in place. We're going to see how far it goes in 1 minute. Pump your arms. Run in place. Go. Wait, did I start it? Wait, 3, 2, 1, go now.
You're terrible for this, Neil.
Cheer him on, everybody. Cheer him on. 1 minute. Come on, pump you guys how fast. 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. You've only run for about 15 seconds. Keep going. Pump your arms. You're the worst runner I've ever seen.
Well, I don't really make
Just pump.
running.
Just pump. Pump it. Pump it. Yeah, pump your arms. I'm pumping my arms like this. Raise your knees up like this. Run in place like this. Up. Don't break your ankle falling off the stage. Keep pumping.
I am pumping, Neil.
Raise your knees up like this and pump. It should go off. It should go off in a minute. He's getting tired. You've got to keep the arms pumping. How much time we got left? Look at it. Look at it. What? You broke my watch. Keep pumping. 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. It should vibrate when it's done. Is it vibrating?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Give Hayden a huge hand. Hayden went 1/10 of a mile.
Nice.
Okay.
That's 10 minute mile, pretty good.
With 1/10 of a mile. Here's what we're gonna do. You're next, Brady.
All right. Okay. I'll go through the full one. Well, he may choose like swimming.
Is there a point or something?
Put this on. Which arm are we going on? Okay. 1 minute.
Start shaking your arms wide. Yeah, you know what it's running because they only charge your arm. You do the same thing with the dishwasher or dryer.
Same thing?
Show the watch on and have it vibrate.
Same thing?
Hang on, Brady.
All right. Uh-oh. Oh,
Hey, back there.
no. Knights of Columbus.
Okay, these are 35-pound weights. These are 35-pound weights.
What am I doing?
You're two.
I worked the legs on
235. You're gonna now listen. You're gonna have to move them a little bit, or you're not gonna be able.
Oh, I'm running with you.
Yes. Ready? Go. Oh.
Oh my God. Exceedingly hard.
You go, Brayden.
All right, stop it.
This is impossible.
Stop it. Braden, you went. In 40 seconds, Braden, you basically were behind him half. Like he was double the amount that you just ran. Which makes sense considering you were carrying
But he only did 4 seconds.
235. I know, but I'm saying based on what he did, he was double. Here, Caden, why don't you try it? Here's a 35-pound kettlebell. You have to hold it like this, and you got to run and throw it.
What's the weight? What's the weight you said?
This is 35, so it's just one of what Brayden had. Brayden was the strongest one of the three, so I gave him the most weight. I wasn't going to give Hayden weight because
Good idea.
I didn't want him to hurt himself. How are your hands sweating?
My forearms feel like they're about to be ripped off.
Okay, we're going to do an indoor run of 1 minute. Ready? Go. Don't hit yourself in the face. Yes, you got to keep running. Oh, see, he didn't take stuff out of his pockets. He's being hindered.
I also did not take stuff out.
Don't stop. Give you 30 seconds. Let's look at the halfway point.
3 calories.
Free waters for all of you.
They're over there talking strategy about how they could have done it different. Just shake your arms. Caden,
Yeah, I wasn't even running. I was kind of just like.
you went 38 seconds and went 12. You went 12 feet further than Brady did. So, our winner is Hayden. Everybody give it up for Hayden. He's our winner. You guys can listen out. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's not fair. I mean, you gave Braden 70 extra pounds. Now, Braden is probably the strongest out of the bunch, but 70 extra pounds is a lot of weight. Even 35 is a lot of weight. Basically, Hayden was able to run double the amount that the two with the weights on. You get the point that the author is making here? If you have stuff that is weighing you down, you are not going to be able to run this race properly. It is going to slow you down. It doesn't have to be bad stuff. But there are things that you've got to think about to know there are things that are not going to allow me to run this race the way that I need to. Last word, sin. The word weights doesn't mean sin. Okay? That word weight isn't really talking about sin. It's just talking about stuff. Things that would get your focus off, that would drain you of energy, that would suck your enthusiasm for God. Maybe you need to get some different friends, or maybe you need to stop listening to that kind of music, or maybe you need to, whatever it may be. I don't know what it will be in your life. But everybody's got weights that they got to lay aside so they can run properly. You saw how the way Hayden ran, right? I'm not trying to make fun of him, but Hayden, is not a runner. Braden would be able, if Braden and Hayden were running, I think Braden would be able to beat Hayden. I know for a fact, if none of them had weights, Caden would beat the other two. So it shows you what added weight does that you don't need. And the writer says, lay it aside. Then the writer says, and the sin which so easily entangles us. The last word is the word sin. I don't think this word is just talking about any kind of sin. I think it's talking about something specific. Look at me and listen, and let me tell you why I think this. I think the sin that it's talking about here is the sin of unbelief. The sin of unbelief. So we got to put aside any of the weights that would slow us down, or anything that's not necessarily sinful, but we need to get rid of it so we can run properly. But we also got to make sure that we're laying aside, that we're throwing aside, that we're getting rid of unbelief in our life. The doubting of God. Because think about it, when you're running this race, it is going to be hard and it is going to be difficult. And there are going to come times in your life where you are going to run up against that wall and you are going to be tempted to doubt God. You're going to be tempted in this race to hit that wall and say, maybe God isn't good. Maybe God isn't for me. Maybe God is going to abandon me. You're going to be tempted to say that. You're going to be like, Lord, I was running this race in faith, and I was going after you, and I was following you, and then all of a sudden, things just fell apart. You're going to be tempted to say, are you good? You're going to be tempted to have unbelief in your life. The writer is saying, put it aside. And then he gives you an encouragement on how to do that. Look at what he does. It actually is how he starts the verse off. He says, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. And let me tell you what I think this means. Some people interpret this to say, we're in a stadium running, and all the people that have come before us who love Jesus are in the stadium, and they're cheering us on. So don't let them down. Well, that's a lot of pressure. I don't think that's what this means. I don't think he's saying all the Christians and lovers of God that have come before us are in the crowd and they're watching us live our life and they're cheering us on and they're wanting us to do good, so don't let them down and run the race with endurance. Here's what I think this means. I think this is not them witnessing us, but I think they're bearing witness to us. They are a great cloud of witnesses, not witnessing us, witnessing to us. And what are they witnessing about? The faithfulness of God. In chapter 11, the way chapter 11 ends is by naming all of these Old Testament people who lived by faith, 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 and how God saw them through all of their difficulties. And then the writer says in chapter 12, we're surrounded by these witnesses. Not that these witnesses are watching us. They're not witnessing us, they're witnessing to us. We actually are looking to them to say, you know what, when I hit that wall, when I'm running this race with endurance, and I hit that wall or I hit that obstacle and that hardship and that difficulty, and I don't think I can go on, and I look and I think that God is going to abandon me, or that he's not good, or he doesn't love me, and I'm tempted to not believe, I look at those people who have come before me. I look at those that are bearing witness to the goodness of God and the faithfulness of God. They're actually bearing witness to us that God is going to be there for us. And that we can keep running and keep enduring and keep going and not quit. When we run in faith, he will love us in such a way that we will win. Listen to that statement again. When we run a life of faith, God will love us in such a way that we will win. So we start this series tonight knowing that the race of life that we run is going to be hard. And we're going to have to rid ourselves of any weight, anything that would slow us down, anything that would zap our energy, anything that would take away enthusiasm for the things of God. We've got to set those aside. Especially the sin of unbelief easily entangles us, and you can't run if you're entangled and wrapped and not free to run. Now, running this race will take great endurance. It is hard. It's difficult. But we can look to the faithfulness of God. We can look to those who bear witness that God will get you through. And he will give you what you need to win.